Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started!
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life. I am your host, Lori Palau. And I'm so happy that you're here. Just a couple of talking points before we get into today's episode. You guys, our YouTube has been really growing, our YouTube community and audience and viewership. So if you are not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, if you mind going over there, if you're a YouTube person, a lot of people are like, I didn't realize you're on YouTube. Well, we are. So head on over. It's This Organized Life podcast. Just head on over, and we've got all of our episodes, and we've got a couple of other short form videos that we put on there that don't necessarily make it to the podcast. So just go. We want to be able to hit people whatever modality they're interested in. We also have our written transcripts for people that prefer to read the episodes as opposed maybe they're at their office and they don't want to be listening or whatever. So again, written, audio, video, we've got you covered. So make sure wherever you are listening or watching, just follow us at This Organized Life podcast. So now that I've got that out of the way, I want to dive into introducing today's guests. So this, I think, is going to be a really fascinating conversation. Joining me today is sorry, let me take that back. Joining me today is Maya Lombarts, and Maya has a really interesting backstory. So she's a functional medicine certified health coach. So we're going to talk about that. And she also has a virtual assistant business. So she runs this company called Healthy High Achievers. And so she works, coaches, does a whole bunch of meshing of your physical health with productivity to really help entrepreneurs. And her business really stemmed from her own story, which is super fascinating. We have her talk about it. She is originally from Belgium and then moved to, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's Peru. She'll correct me if I'm wrong. And I want to talk to her today about cultural differences, working with chronic illness, how that impacts your ability to live an organized life, what strategies you can put into place if you are somebody that is maybe faced with a chronic illness. I mean, I feel like every time I turn around nowadays, somebody's getting diagnosed with some sort of autoimmune disorder or some other thing that might be impacting their ability to lead the life that they want. And again, there are ways and strategies and people out there that can support you specifically in different areas. And so when I got connected with Maya, I thought her story was really fascinating. And I said, please, I'd love to have you come on and talk with our community here at This Organized Life. So without further ado, let me welcome Maya Lombarts to the show. Welcome, Maya.
Hey, Laurie, so happy to be here. And what an introduction. Loved it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And on just a side note, Maya and I have been rescheduling this interview. I feel like a half a dozen times. So I'm so happy that we're finally actually even able to make it happen.
Me too.
Yeah. So tell our listeners, I gave a very top line overview, but just in your own words, let us tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am from Belgium. I've been living for 7 years now in Cusco, Peru. So that's right where the Machu Picchu is. I was supposed to stay here for 3 months to do an internship in intercultural management. So I really loved working with different cultures. And I was more in the business world back then. And then being here, living here, just my health. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome when I was 15. So most of my teenage life was just trying to get better, focused on health. And in 21, 22, ready to, do my internship, finish university. And I ended up living in Cusco, Peru. And my health just started improving so much. Living in the mountains, it's really high up. mountain air, natural food, spontaneous life, all these aspects that made my muscle aches, extreme fatigue, digestive issues, it made it all go away. And that's when I started asking myself, like, okay, why? What's happening? Why am I feeling better here? And then
Yeah.
I dove into this whole story of functional medicine. Yeah.
I'm sitting here. Anybody that's like watching us on YouTube, I probably have like my mouth open because I feel like there's so many people that, again, you talk about the physical implications or the physical, ramifications of stress and anxiety and how it takes a toll on our bodies. And here you were, a teenager, right? Without even the responsibilities of like mortgage and kids and a
Right.
career. And you were facing, and again, there's a million reasons why people develop the things that they develop. But I find it so fascinating that you went again away for what was supposed to be a shorter stint. And then all of a sudden notice the shift in your lifestyle had an actual, like, quantifiable impact for the better on your health.
Yeah, because honestly, I thought I'd never be able to work full time. I was that bad. I said, okay, maybe for the rest of my life, they told me this is chronic. There's nothing I can do about it. So probably I will never be able to work full time. But then I got to Peru and I started running up these stairs. Note that in Belgium, I had an electric bike and I was walking with a cane. And then in Peru, I could just run upstairs. I was working full time. After working full time, I would go to salsa classes and dance salsa.
Oh
And I
my
was like, what
gosh.
is happening? Right. So, yeah, when I started diving into those causes and, okay, why was I feeling so sick? Or why was living in Belgium making me feel so sick? And it's always stress is a big part of it, of course, the lifestyle and the rushed, Western life of productivity, addiction, and all the things, being highly effective. And yeah, I was a teenager. So it was mainly, it's often a combination of causes. So it's
Okay.
stress in every way. So we look at emotional stress, mental stress, but also physical stress. Why is the body stressed out? So for me, after 3 years living in Belgium, then diving into functional medicine, talking to practitioners in Belgium and trying to understand what had happened in my body, I realized that fast forward, my root causes were like a combination of triggers, three different things. One of it was I was in the middle of my Christmas exams, I remember, and I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to rest. I got a flu,
Mm.
and I just started taking all of these painkillers and pills to keep going. So I was pushing a moment where my body needed to have a rest. That was one of the triggers. Second, I was growing apart with my best friends, which at that age is a big trauma, a big experience. To be growing apart because just our personalities were changing. There wasn't a match, but had a really, that was mostly the emotional stress I was going through. And then thirdly, this one we discovered so like 10 years after. Apparently I had a liver that was full of clutter. Talking about clutter, it was full of gasoline, plastic, rubber, and mold.
Wait, in your
So
liver?
yeah, in my liver. It was just stuck there. And I didn't have the right enzymes and things in my liver to detoxify, to get rid of them. So they got stuck there somewhere when I was 15, highly processed foods and everything you put on your skin and everything you breathe in. I remember I had a scooter, a motorcycle back then. And so gasoline.
Yeah, you were probably
Cool.
just like
I was
inhaling it.
yeah,
Right.
inhaling it. And so I had to start doing all these detoxing protocols and taking supplements, and really the most natural I live and eat, the better I feel still. But back in the day, when you tell a doctor that you're experiencing muscle aches and extreme fatigue, no one's going to look at your liver. Now that's the
Mhm.
thing. No one's going to think, oh, the root cause of this is going to be in our liver, because it's muscles. But when you think about it, it makes sense. The liver is a big player in everything. Vitamins are stored there. if they don't get stored properly in the liver, they can't travel to your cells, so your cells can't absorb, so you have muscle aches, etc., etc. It's a whole cascade of symptoms that happens, but you have to go upstream, and that's kind of what functional medicine does.
Well,
So
that's
the person, yeah,
yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say, I'm wondering, I want you to just kind of unpack and give a little overview or definition of like what exactly functional medicine is for people that are listening out there that might not be familiar with that terminology, or how that differs from more traditional Western medicine.
yeah, absolutely. So in traditional Western medicine, they will look at, okay, what's the symptom? What diagnosis can we give this? What's the treatment, right? But in functional medicine, really, when you're going through something that is chronic, that has been going on for years, the triggers might have been 5, 10, even 20 years ago. It's really hard for a doctor who only has 30 minutes for you. It's really hard to figure out your whole history, your whole timeline, everything that's been going on. When it takes a while for symptoms to develop, it also takes a while for symptoms to go away. And you need a different approach. It's not about, so functional medicine is not about treating symptoms, but it's really about going upstream and looking for the causes and looking for, okay, when did this start? What was happening in this person's life? And taking it more into a holistic picture of taking into account stress in every way, like I mentioned before. So taking into account traumas, strong emotional things that happened, or periods of taking antibiotics for a long period of time, anything that could have thrown off your system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why functional medicine is more about the functioning of the body and the systems biology to really see the hormonal balance, the microbiome, digestion, the liver. How is it all working? And why is it not working properly?
Which is so funny because I feel like it's such a similar approach to kind of how we tackle organization and dealing with clutter,
Right.
as opposed to just going in there and going, oh, you've got a pile of papers over here, let's get rid of it, or you've got too much stuff, let's just thin it out, as opposed to looking at that about going back a few layers and saying, okay, what brought this here in the first place? What is the catalyst for this? And really, I think it's about putting kind of, well, it's putting it on a different lens, right? Looking at it through a different filter, but it also isn't as black and white, right? Because you are sitting there and putting in all this extra time to really understand what's driving it, as opposed to, like you said, I have a headache, let me take a Tylenol. That's treating it, but it's not really getting to the root of the problem. And I think, again, functional medicine, it's becoming more mainstream, but for a lot of people, it is an alternative way to approach medicine from the traditional way that in America, people are used to, experiencing that.
And I'm happy that it's becoming more mainstream because, I mean, I was 15. I'm now almost 30. And so 15 years ago, functional medicine wasn't the thing, or I didn't know where to turn to when just Western medicine wasn't giving me the answers. I didn't know what to do. So what I did was I went to psychotherapy because I didn't know how to deal with these limitations and going through puberty, but then with a body that wasn't functioning while my mind wanted to do a million things, right? So I didn't know where to go. So if I had found functional medicine back then, or heard a story like mine, so that's also the reason why I'm sharing it more often now, because I realized that I couldn't find it 15 years ago. And so I hope right now that's becoming more available and more easy to dive into. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm interested because you have done this really interesting kind of, for a while you were just doing coaching in the functional medicine space, but then you pivoted. And you also, because before you came from a business background. Actually, I want to put a pause in that for a second and ask how your health is right now. Let me just, before we dive into that, let's talk about how your health is really quick right now.
Yeah, I'm awesome. I'm good.
Awesome. Are you symptom free, or do you still have bouts of, flare ups?
A good question. Again, it's not that black and white, For a while living in Peru, I was like, yeah, I'm symptom free. It's gone, But then I realized, one, I'm living in dry mountain air, and two, I really, ever since I was 15, I started adapting my life to my health and the way my body's feeling. And so sometimes I notice that fibromyalgia is still there when, on two occasions. One, when I travel to, like last time I traveled to the Canary Islands and it's super humid
Oh my God,
and all the,
that's where I went on my honeymoon, to the Canary Islands.
well, we're connected in a new way again.
I'm like, I never know anybody that went there. And people are like, where'd you go on your honeymoon? I'm like, the Canary Islands. So
Yeah, right.
anyway,
I was actually, yeah, I was visiting a friend who's from there, but we met in Belgium when she was on an exchange, etc. And so it's a very humid place, and fibromyalgia symptoms just hit me hard again. It was, and I said, okay, as long as I'm in a dry place, I feel great. That's one. And two, when I'm on vacation and I go on vacation with friends and I try to follow their pace, I break
mm,
down. I can't. So I realize I've been adapting and I got so used to adapting and finding my own pace. And probably I still rest way more than other people, but I don't know because it's kind of become my new normal. I know what I need. I've had to learn it the hard way, right? And that's also the reason why I started helping people kind of balance and listen to their bodies and find that organize your life but in a more flexible way, right? It's something that Peru taught me and chronic disease taught me.
yeah. And I love that you're sharing that, because again, I think there's so many people that are listening out there that might be struggling with some sort of chronic illness, whatever that may be. And they just push through it, right? I'm going to white knuckle my way through. I'm just going to push through. And that's just not sustainable long term. Eventually, if you don't stop, your body's going to stop you, right? There's going to come a point where you're going to hit that wall. And so finding that mental place where you can, and again, I don't mean to stereotype, but I know in American culture, there's this like busy is productive and busy. And finding time knowing that you need rest will then allow you to be probably more productive when you are focused to do stuff, as opposed to just saying, I'm going to go for 12 hours straight and crash midway through. Because as opposed to saying, you know what, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a little siesta or whatever it is that you need to do to say, understand this is my body, and setting those healthy boundaries and having that acceptance, and also communicating that with the people in your world. I think that's probably a big piece.
Yeah. And like you said, it's sort of about that quality of the work you put in or your moments of focus instead of quantity, right? Instead of putting in 12 hours, what kind of quality of work you're going to have in those 12 hours? You probably can
Yes.
get the same thing done if you just rest more and then take 5 hours, but
Yeah.
really focused work. And then you get the same thing done, but in a better quality.
Yeah. Work smarter, not harder, people. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
So you pivoted your business. Okay. So you were doing the functional medicine. You got certified as a coach, because I understand that, like so many people, when you have something that is life altering, that is transformative in your life, you want to embrace that and then like share it with the world, right? You want to pay it back to other people so that you could be, helpful in their journey. And I love and commend that. But you also had this kind of business background, and your business now, as I was preparing for this interview, you have basically a virtual assistant business, if I'm not mistaken. I won't put words in your mouth. I'll let you talk about it. But you've incorporated the functional medicine piece. So I'm going to just ask you to elaborate a little bit on that and talk about that, because I think it's really fascinating. It's specifically because we, in addition to people looking for organizing strategies, we also have a large listenership of entrepreneurs out there. And so I think this could be really valuable for them as well.
Yeah, it's funny how you start with one idea of basically, Laurie, I still don't know what to call myself. So any inspiration from any entrepreneurial listeners is very welcome. But to elaborate, when I was looking for my answers in functional medicine, there was a functional medicine person who said, "Hey, Maya, you know so much about this already, and you know what it's like to go through chronic disease. and you love working with people, haven't you thought of a career switch? And I was so focused on the business world, and I was a general manager, office manager, operations manager. You know, I was so in that management world that I had never thought of pursuing something health for my business, you know, professionally. I was just reading all those books and learning all that stuff for myself. But then she gave me that idea to help others. And I said, yeah, you know what? When I was 15, and if I had maybe it didn't have to go to therapy, but what I mainly needed was just someone to guide me, help me see the positive, help me listen to my body, help me get through this time. And that could have been a functional medicine health coach, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, I want to help others. And when I first got certified, and I was like, oh, right, you know, let the clients come in. I'm going to focus on chronic fatigue and chronic disease, and then crickets, you know, because people are tired, and you know, they don't see it as a symptom that needs to be treated or deserves attention because everyone is tired.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I was like, okay. And I naturally started getting clients who don't have chronic disease. And I was like, okay, what's happening here? But they were pushing themselves. Just like you
Mhm.
said, in these cultures, we have this idea that we always want to be busy, busy, busy and be productive. And I started getting these clients who, that's when I created a community called Healthy High Achievers. They were all high achievers who wanted to do a million things, wanted to be in 3 online courses at the same time. And many of them wanted to start their business, or already had a side project, or already had that entrepreneurial mind. So it started flowing where I started coaching more people who were quite high achievers, entrepreneurial. And then as I was building my own business, I was gaining that experience of building my website, building my freebie and my email list and my YouTube channel and my podcast and my, you know, all the things that in the end I started helping others with too. So here I was, kind of virtual assistancing, but also not, because it mainly came from my own experience in management. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of managing people's businesses. What is that? But also coaching them. What is this that I'm doing? You know? And so right now I started calling it holistic life and business support.
Mm.
It's because I'm working mostly with creative entrepreneurs who are photographers, musicians. I count coaches and yoga teachers and stuff also, as it's, I feel like it's a creative job to crawl into someone's world and go upstream and figure things out with someone. Um, and so I mainly have creative entrepreneurs who need structure, but not too much structure, because then their creative brain starts rebelling against the structure they create, right? So they can do a whole calendar of time blocking, but they need kind of that balance that I found through chronic disease, through living in Peru, having that Belgian mind, but Peruvian lifestyle, and helping them both in business and in life, decluttering and organizing and creating structure and systems, but with still enough space to just be spontaneous and be creative and be flexible.
Yeah. And I mean, as somebody who has gotten to a point in my business where I'm fortunate that I have a team of key people that help me, that I'm able to delegate and outsource. I mean, that who I trust has been a game changer. And I think for a lot of people, um, just you can get so in the weeds of things. Having somebody else also just takes a weight off of your shoulders. But I love the fact that you're incorporating it. It's not just the linear, like, oh, let me help you project manage this, but you're
Yeah.
also looking at how is your lifestyle supporting the work that you're doing. And you can speak to that. And I would love for you, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I just wanted you to talk a little bit about the cultural part, because again, I think that is very fascinating. We've got listeners from all over, and let's just put a pin in that. We'll be right back. So one of the things that drew me to you when we first were introduced was the fact that you are from Belgium, you live in Peru, you teach and coach people all over the globe. And our predominant listenership is here in the US, but we've got people in pretty much every country under the sun. And I would love for you to speak into your experience of how different cultural differences impact organization, how I approach mental, physical health, like work, that whole, I always air quote balance, all of these things, because I think that there is something to be said for kind of getting out of our own head and looking at how other people are adapting certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, the differences between Peruvian culture and Belgian culture, it's massive. It's just two different worlds. But mainly in terms of organizing, Peruvians are more flaky. But we need more of that flakiness. I think I wanted to create an episode on that, actually, like the good parts of that flakiness that people have here, because Peruvians are so good at listening to their body and just living in the now. The now is so much more important than any item that they write in their agenda. For them, a schedule, a planner, they only use it for work stuff. It's absurd to them to plan your free time or your social life. It's like, why? That's free time. We'll see what we'll do. I'll see what I feel like. So if today we ask, let's say you ask me, Lori, you're in Peru and you're like, hey, Maya, do you want to go for dinner next week?
Right.
And me in the Peruvian way of living now, I would be like, next week? I don't know what's happening next week.
Oh my God, my older daughter should be living in Peru because that is her.
Send her over. Yeah. Because in Belgium, it's like, hey, you want to go for dinner? Oh, yeah, let me check my schedule. I have space in 4 weeks on Friday. Does that work for you? Oh, yeah. And then it's scheduled. And then the day comes where maybe it's a Friday where you had such a busy week. You really don't feel like it. You just want to slouch on the couch and not do anything. But you feel like you have to go. You don't want to cancel. You don't want to disappoint your friend. You confirmed it 4 weeks ago. So you don't want to cancel and you push through. And that's the big problem. Why do we take all that stuff so seriously when it's supposed to be free time and you're supposed to do whatever you feel like doing? And that's what a Peruvian person does. They might even just flake and not tell you. So you're just waiting and they never appear. So that's the annoying part.
Oh my God, I feel like I love it, but yet I'm like I'm feeling like an anxiousness about it. Like I would just it's as somebody who is very routine, very scheduled, very I think that it's a complete mind shift. But it almost seems like there's an intentionality to their not scheduling, right? Because they want to just reserve that.
I schedule my stuff for work, so why should I for my free time? That's kind of their mindset. Like, why be so serious about it? It's free time. So then it happens that, let's say 2 days ago, I was double booked. Yeah. And I knew it's fine because one of those two things is not going to happen. So let's see what happened. It's a plan. A plan is like an idea of what might happen that evening, but it's not a given. So then the evening came and one of my friends, I was like, hey, are we still meeting? And then she said, you know what? I have this big project. I just want to work on it tonight and get it done by tomorrow. Can we do it another day? Oh, yeah, sure. So then I asked the other person, hey, you told me the 14th we were going to meet. And she was like, oh, yeah, but I'll be in Cusco the 14th of July, not June, And so none of my two plans were actually happening. And then there was a friend who spontaneously called me up. Maya, what are you doing right now? And I was like, well, actually nothing. Oh, let's go for dinner. There's this new place, blah, blah, blah. And I went for dinner with this friend that was not in my schedule at all. But that's the way social life works here.
So I mean, I love it. It just seems so freeing. Now I'm wondering, now you are single, like you don't have kids. I'm wondering, because I think if there's parents that are listening out there, they're like, my schedule is dictated by my kids' schedule. Like I'm running them from this sport or this activity to this whatever. And I'm wondering how that looks to people in that particular season of life in Peru.
Yeah. So having kids, of course, takes some planning. But even when I see Peruvian friends who have kids, their lives are spontaneous, their kids' lives are spontaneous, their hobbies are, hobbies and sports here in Peru. It's interesting, but it's not like, oh, you have Monday from 7 to 8 and you have Thursdays from 7 to 8, right? And you need to see how you can drive there and then you need to drop off your kids. No, here it's like, oh, you pay for the month and then your kid goes whenever the kid wants to go. So there's not even a schedule in sports and activities. And I remember from my childhood, I did so many sports and activities that my parents actually had a calendar. They were coordinating with other parents to drive and drive back, and that's a thing that just does not exist here. Kids are just like along for the ride. They're just following along. Then they see another kid on the street. They start playing. There might be a hobby nearby where they like to go to. Yeah, that's it.
It's like growing up in America in the 70s, like me,
Exactly.
where it
And
was we didn't have travel sports and all the craziness. At least I didn't. But I guess, for people that are listening out there, and again, we have a large population of listeners that are in the US and that are slave to their schedule and they are a slave to the calendar. And maybe they don't want to be. And culturally, it's not the norm, right? So you're in Peru and it's like, this is the Peruvian way and everyone's more chill. And, you get kind of woven into that way of life. If you want to adopt those habits, it's harder because you're working, that's going upstream, like that's going against the grain. And so I don't even know what my question is in there, but I'm just curious, like, having seen and experienced both sides of things, if somebody's like, yeah, I would love to loosen the reins a little bit, have a little less structure, because we talk a lot about structure here and the freedom that can come from a routine, but there's also the downside of being so regimented that you don't have any time. And that's when a lot of times the chronic fatigue and, stress and physical ailments happen because you're just constantly on high alert. So I'm just wondering if there's any strategies that you're thinking that people could maybe adopt to help them.
And you didn't even, before you even asked the question, like there were already a million things coming to my mind.
Okay. All right, go for it.
Yeah, most of my clients are living in high pressure, like high productivity world. And so they love the fact that I am here in this culture, this mindset makes me a better guide and sidekick for them to help them really loosen up that structure or have that balance between structure and flexibility. So the first thing I would like challenge someone with is, if you're time blocking everything, just ask yourself, like, do I really need to? Like, do I really need to have all these time blocks? Do I really need to have the long to-do list? Like, sometimes we're afraid that our mind won't remember everything, or if we don't write it down, it's not going to happen. And we have all these systems. And I'm like, really? Is nothing going to get done when you loosen up a little bit? What are you?
God, you're counterintuiting everything I ever teach.
Yeah, because it's like, really, like, do we need all that? We need it a little bit, but do we need it in everything in life? And so just asking that question of, what am I afraid of? Why do I feel so, scheduling is fine, but why do I feel almost obsessed with scheduling and using systems and to-do lists? Like, why do I feel like I really need that? What's the fear? Often it's like a FOMO, fear of missing out of, but if I don't do this and da, 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 we give everything on our to-do list the same level of importance. And we love chasing that productivity, but then really, so what if that doesn't happen today? Or so what if I don't do that? Or so what? Like, just really knowing the difference between this needs to happen today And if I really want to, I could just cancel all the rest and rest.
Right.
If I
Right.
really wanted, just sometimes we take our own busyness and our own productivity and plans a bit too seriously, like as if it's the end of the world.
You know what? It's really true. And again, it's people listening out there, they may be like, what? Because all we do is talk about it. You should write it down. You should have accountability. You should, and I do agree with all of those things. But I think, and I'm just thinking back to my own experience, like we've all had a hiccup in our life, something that is unanticipated. We maybe had our schedule, we were going to do A, B, and C, and then life goes sideways. Your kid gets sick. God forbid there's an emergency, something happens, and all of a sudden your plans come to a screeching halt and they completely take a left turn. When you come back to it, like life still happened, like things still went on. I've seen this with technology. If your computer goes down or you have a weather thing and you have like a blackout and like, oh my gosh, I can't get on whatever. And you're like, you think it's the end of the world. And then somehow things still happen. You're able to get back
Yeah.
on. And it wasn't as much of a catastrophe as we often make it out to be. And sometimes things are an inconvenience, but they're not a crisis. And
Yeah.
we often, again, present company included, have had to work on, is this an inconvenience? Sure. Did this not happen the way I wanted? Sure. Did I not get done maybe what I had hoped I would get done? Sure. But is it the end of the world? Is it something that's worth me snapping at my kids or at my spouse or having my stomach in knots or all of these other negative things that I think a
And
lot of us
snapping at
hold
yourself.
ourselves. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, what did you say?
And snapping at yourself. I was just thinking,
Yes.
like, often we're being so hard on ourselves for not doing what we wrote down we were gonna do. But whatever you wrote down, whatever you scheduled, whatever you thought you were gonna do in a day, it's just an idea. It's just a plan. It's not necessarily reality. Because in reality, like you said, life happens and stuff
Mhm.
happens. And maybe it's not even an emergency. Maybe your grandmother calls you and really wants to have a chat for half an hour, and inside you're like, I scheduled my day and I really wanted to get stuff done. And then you ask yourself, okay, so why is that not important? Why is that phone call not important to you? Why is it more important to get to check things off of your list when a family member just wants to have quality time with you? So
Oh my
shifting those
gosh.
priorities on the one hand, and on the other hand, also being kind to yourself, of giving yourself some slack. Um, like you said, when you're like, okay, I didn't get done what I wanted to get done. Did the world end? No. But also, are you beating yourself up in that moment? Or do you have a good friendship with yourself? And I think that is often in a lot of perfectionism and chasing your to-do list, it's often a thing that's lacking, and that's that friendship with yourself.
That's so good right there because I can't tell you how many people, and again, I work with women entrepreneurs in one side of my business. I work with people that are looking to declutter and get organized in another line of my business. And in both areas, I see people beating themselves up that what they
Mm,
should be doing, what they're not doing, what they could be doing. And again, and we've heard this all before, from other people. It's like, would you talk to somebody else the way you talk to yourself? And I think
mm,
that that is really relevant for what you're saying because we have these sometimes unrealistic expectations, or we're not able to give ourselves the grace or pivot when we need to, or when we're asked to, with stuff that really matters. And again, that conversation with your grandmother, at the end of the day, that might be really important. And as parents, for a lot of times, we get frustrated. I've seen it and I've experienced it when my kids were little, about you're trying to get all these things done and your kids are home, whether they're have a day off from school or, they're homesick or it's summer vacation or whatever. And they're home and you're like, I'm trying to get this done. And it's about saying, it's okay. It'll happen. It'll get done. It might not get done as quickly, as efficiently as I wanted it to, but there are other things. And
Yeah, and when
Like,
your kid wants to show you their new drawing or whatever it is, and you're frustrated because you're in the midst of your focus time and you want to get stuff done, just looking at that drawing, being in the moment, being present, taking it in, showing appreciation, and telling yourself, this is important too. My family is important to me. And that phone call or that drawing that they show you, that in the bigger scale of things, that might be the most important event of your day in the end.
yeah,
As opposed to all the things that's supposed to be productive that you have on your list.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Um, we're going to take one last break, but before we do, I would love for you to just tell our listeners if they want to learn more about what you're doing, connect up with you, hire you. I know you work with people from all over, even though you're based. And if anybody's watching on YouTube, I'm just like looking at this like beautiful backdrop with this beautiful tapestry where you are. I'm like, oh, looks amazing. um, how can people learn more and get involved in the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if people want to see more of Cusco, Peru, it's best that you follow me on Instagram because I like to just film the streets I'm walking and show people a bit of my life here. And that is at Maya Lombarts. So that's MayaLombarts. So I'm sure it will be in the show notes because I know it's a Belgian name.
Yes,
Might be hard
yes.
to spell. But then my website is the same. It's mayalombarts.com. And so there you're going to find a free ebook that I have for people, which is called Journal Prompts to Zoom Out of Your Busy Life. So that's really
Mm,
going to help you. I would just advise you schedule, if you want to schedule like a half an hour block or something where you can just create a relaxing moment for yourself, some candles, your favorite cup of tea. I have my green tea here with me. I love colorful teacups.
I know. I love it. It's such a fun mug. I love it.
I know. I love tea mugs. But yeah, just create a cozy moment, take your journal and dive into that ebook. It's with journal prompts, so you can just follow the flow of the prompts. And that will really help you to just zoom out of the daily business and connect again with what's truly important to you.
I love it. I love it. We're going to take one last break for a hot mess minute. When we come back, we're going to put you in the hot seat for our wrap up questions. So sit tight. All right, Maya, this has been great. And I've actually learned a lot because it makes me stop and think. A lot of times we really are just in this mode of we got to go, like we're constantly chasing something. And I love the reminders that it's okay to take our foot off the gas. It's okay to go sideways a little bit. It's okay to say, I'm going to intentionally not schedule something. And again,
Mm.
culturally, that is counterintuitive. And that was one of the things when COVID happened for so many people, it was they all of a sudden had permission to like stay home. And that was great. And I see now here in America, people getting right back, we're right back where we were before.
Mm.
And I love having people like you to remind us that that doesn't have to be the norm of our lives. So thank you for that. One of the things that we love to do here is get a little glimpse into what's inspiring you these days. We love to ask our guests about books that they're reading, either something that they're currently reading, or maybe something that you've read before that you either come back to or that you refer to other people that's been like transformational in your life. So I'm just wondering if you could share something, and if you have a couple, that will be fine too, to give us a little glimpse into what inspires you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that's coming up for me is a classic that everyone will know. It's The Power of Now. But again, the
Yes.
emphasis on the now, And I read that when I was like 13. So it
Mm-hmm.
really inspired me and defined lots of like what I do now. It's been
Mm-hmm.
really a foundation for me. Another book I read a couple of years ago is Finding Your Own North Star by Martha Beck.
I
That's
feel
really, it
like
has.
somebody else recommended that because it sounds
Mm,
familiar. Okay.
love it. I just love her way of writing. There's so many tiny exercises. If you want to get more in touch with your body, your intuition, your inner world, as opposed to your outside schedule, the
Mm-hmm.
exterior, um, read that book, do the little exercises. I really loved it. And then what I'm reading right now is actually also a book I would recommend. It's Chillpreneur. And so
Mm.
for all the entrepreneurs who are listening, Chillpreneur by Denise Duffield. I think her last name has like several.
Oh, well,
Duffield Thomas. That's it. That's
okay.
the
All right. We'll have
and
to check that out. Yeah. Good.
yeah, I love that one.
Awesome. Awesome. And then our final two questions that we ask all of our guests, which is in right now in this season of your life, where do you feel the most organized and where do you feel like a little bit of a hot mess?
Yeah. I feel a bit like a hot mess. The first thing that comes up is my downloads folder.
Oh,
Honestly, everything's in there.
I get you. Yes.
I really need to schedule these moments of going through the downloads folder and just putting everything where it belongs because it piles up and everything's in there. Contracts,
Yes.
invoices, important sites, it just all stays in there. That's my hot mess.
That is so true. I think that's for a lot of people. And that really is. Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
And so I
What about
feel most
organized?
organized right now. You're not gonna expect this, but in my to-dos. And I've been telling you like, oh, long to-do list. No, but what I've started doing, I stopped keeping a to-do list actually, and I started putting these time-sensitive to-dos like paying my bills, invoicing clients once a month, giving my dog her anti-flea thing, or even getting a massage, which is something I promised I would get for myself once a month. I put it in my calendar, just like in red. All the to-dos
Mhm.
are in red. And then once I see them and I do them, I can delete them. And you don't
Mm.
know how satisfying it is to delete a big red thing in your schedule.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's working. That system is really working for me.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And it is, and that's a great, and I don't mean to use the word hack to like, but
Yeah.
it is a different strategy, a mind shift when you put it on your calendar as something to do versus just a running list, a running tally. It seems more like it oftentimes seems more actionable. It means like I have it on here, I could check it off as opposed to like again, the cliche, add it to my to-do list, one other thing on there. It just seems like, okay, this is what my rhythm is today. So I love that strategy.
Yeah, and I try to have just that one red thing in my day, or max two, but not fill it up with everything that's on my mind. Just really, really important things that I
Yes.
cannot miss that need to get done. Yeah.
I love that. Love it, love it, love it. Maya, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we were finally able to make this happen. I know our schedules were not aligned, but see, we didn't stress it and we made it happen. And here we are.
We knew it was going to happen anyway.
It
so
was.
I'm glad it did.
It
Perfect timing.
was.
Yeah.
So again, if you want to connect up with Maya and all the things she's doing, we'll have all the links in the show notes. You can get that wherever you're listening to this podcast. Of course, like I said at the top of the episode, we're on YouTube. Please subscribe to us there. It really matters. We do appreciate all the people that continue to support our show because the more people that are subscribed, follow, listen, it makes it easier for other people to find us. So thank you so much. And I hope you'll be back next week for another episode of This Organized Life. I'm Lori Palau. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love and share it with your friends. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth the listen. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at This Organized Life Podcast. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can head on over to our website at simply the letter B like boy organized.com, which is filled with tons of resources, including free downloads, checklists, links to our amazing organizing partners, and all of our digital offerings. I'll see you next week for another episode of This Organized Life.